I'm Ash Montes and I work as a UX researcher, and I've seen with my work how important the start of a research study is. In fact, planning the start of a research is like having a great breakfast in the morning. They say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, many people skip it, rushing to work, they're not hungry. This might have happened to you, but then throughout the day, you're struggling to focus, you're easily distracted. Lack of a proper start of a research study does exactly the same thing. It shapes so much of what comes next during the actual research, and you don't even notice it all came down to how the research was set up right at the beginning. Let's create a little scenario here. Let's imagine a company that is developing a fitness app, and there's a product manager working with this app in talks with the team about developing this new feature that would increase engagement with the app. The product manager has some doubts. The feature is a big piece of work, will take lots of resources from the development team. So the product manager, or PM as they're known, the PM wants some research. This is kind of a common setup. The PM goes to the UX researcher. Hey, can we have a research study on this topic? Generally speaking, researchers will be asked to investigate either a problem or solution. And with the problem, it's something that has more to do with user needs or pain points. That's the terminology that we're familiar with. So it would be something like, we suspect people are struggling with a commitment to work out every day, and this affects the use of the fitness app. Or it could be that the research comes on the solution side. The team came up with an idea. What if the app offered personal coaching? Would that incentivize people to stay with their workout? So we've covered two examples, one on the problem space, the other on the solution space, of requests that would come to you as a researcher. Let's imagine this scenario that the PM came to the UX researcher, and what the PM needs at this point is just confidence that the decision that they're about to make in moving forward with this feature is the right decision. We see here that UX research is, in this case, a risk-reducing activity. All right, so you're the UX researcher. What do you do next? We know there's a decision to be made, and what you can do is gather evidence to support the decision or recommend something else. So at this point, you could be tempted to start planning what methodology to use and how you're going to speak to the participants, how you're going to reach out to the customers. But let's pause for a second. Do you know enough about the decision the PM will have to make? That's the first trap. It's easy to jump into action mode, thinking you know enough, or you would feel silly asking the PM to go into more details. The PM usually has so much information, and it's natural for them to assume that you know as much as they do. It's kind of the curse of knowledge. So the more clarity you have on the decision to be made, the more clarity on the type of evidence that you'll need to collect. The next step is to see if there's any existing data already available that could help. In the ideal world, the PM has already done a lot of work on that front, but you'll be surprised how helpful it can be to raise the question with the team. Sometimes the PM has some data available, and this will inform what the focus of the research will be. Or in other cases, the PM hasn't had a chance to do a proper review of all the data and can get involved. This means checking the analytics dashboard, talking to the data scientist team to see if there's any user data log available, collecting feedback from customer support, finding secondary research on the internet, maybe a market research report somewhere. It has happened to me where the PM came and they needed things straight away, but the research team was completely taken with other projects. So what we could offer at that point was just to review some of the previous research studies that were done recently and see if that would be enough evidence to support the decision that the EPM was about to make. In that case, it was. So it worked. Let's imagine 2 days have gone by, you've learned as much as you could, and you've gathered evidence available inside the company and shared this with the PM. But obviously, there are still gaps in knowledge. Shall we now launch a study? There are two other things you may consider doing just before launching the research study. Right now, the PM is paying attention to certain aspects of the business, but the rest of the team may have other questions or assumptions that are complementary to what the PM is considering. Is there a way to get those different perspectives in the room? Get all of them in the room with the PM and everyone raising their own questions around the fitness app, making assumptions about what people actually need when it comes to fitness. The hope is this will lead to a better understanding of the problem, getting 360 view on things, and it will also allow for more alignment with the team. So there's less risk of someone down the line asking a question, hey, why haven't you considered doing research on this? The activity of getting together and discussing assumptions is known as assumption mapping. And it's like a workshop session. I'll leave a link down below if you want to run it yourself. I said there are two things that I would consider before launching the study. One we've covered just now, getting the team involved with this assumption mapping. So the research is not something that is being done by the researcher alone. Everyone has a say. The other point is a subtle one. Do we actually know what the problem is? So I spoke at the beginning about the PM having to take a decision to address a struggle that the customers have. So in the fitness app, people are not sticking to the workout routine. The PM has their own understanding of what the problem is. Maybe others agree, so it feels like it's a consensus. But then the more you think about it, the more you notice opportunities to reframe this initial question. I'm reading a book called What's a Problem? And it gives an example of a building where the tenants living there complain that the elevator takes too long to move. Instead of fixating on the elevator, maybe it's not that the elevator is slow, maybe people perceive the elevator to be slow. So what can we do to distract people from the elevator? Maybe just by installing mirrors outside the elevator and inside the elevator will do the trick. So the premise is people would tend to lose track of time when they have something to capture their attention, to distract them. This second solution is only possible when someone challenged that first original framing of the problem. The elevator is slow. Someone stopped and asked, is it that the elevator is slow? Or is it people's perceptions that the elevator is slow? This is what Don Norman calls peeling the onion. In fact, he has this quote. He says, invariably, the problem I'm asked to solve is not the real fundamental problem, root problem. It's usually a symptom. There's this concept in organizational learning that talks about the double loop learning. And double loop learning is, in my mind, a really great goal to aim for as a UX researcher. So there's this story of American soldiers in Iraq. This is a true story. The number of eye injuries was quite high. So these soldiers were being brought to Walter Reed Hospital to be treated. And the doctors there worked really hard to develop new techniques and improve their approach to eye surgery. And that is known as a single loop learning. So you take action to correct the problem without asking why this is happening. However, over time, these doctors tried to understand why there were so many eye injuries. And they learned that it was happening because the type of goggles that the soldiers had was uncomfortable to wear. This led a company to develop improvements to the goggles, a new design to the goggles. And because of that, soldiers started using these goggles and the number of eye injuries dropped. And that is what we refer to as double loop learning. This moment where you learn to move upstream and go beyond what's right in front of you. So let's recap. We spoke of 4 things to focus on. The first is get as much clarification of what is the decision that would be affected by the research. In fact, if you learn there's no decision to be made after the research, it begs the question, is it worth doing the research? The second point, what kind of evidence this decision maker needs? Is it readily available inside the company? It saves time and money if we get started on those. And once you've gone through these first 2 steps, you may consider a third step, which is it worth getting other people involved, considering the problems from other perspectives? And then you have the final 4th step, which can be done almost simultaneously with the third, which is just challenging, possibly reframing the problem. Do we actually know what the problem is? And in fact, I've mentioned this book, What's a Problem? And it gives some suggestions on ways to look at this, but there's another that I myself have used in the past, and it's the ladder of inference. It's basically a model of the steps we take to make sense of the problem. So it's an opportunity to investigate what is the data we're starting out with, what is the interpretation from this data, what are the main conclusions from it, what is the recommended action based on all of this. It's very easy to go up the ladder very quickly, so having it as a visual reference when discussing evidence can help focus the team on what is available and observable, keeping us down the ladder as much as possible. Those are the 4 main steps as you start the research project. Obviously, stakeholders will be expecting a research plan in those first meetings, but make sure to keep it flexible as a living document when you start, because the worst thing is committing yourself to something only to learn a couple of days or weeks later that things weren't exactly as they were observed at the beginning. I'll share a link to a project builder down below in the description if you want to check out how to get started with a research project. Also, I cover a whole lot more on UX on this channel, so if you've enjoyed enough of this video, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I have more content coming up. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around.